Welcome back to the Pit Crew podcast for episode number 3. Today, we got a special guest on. It is the highest finishing female NASCAR driver. She led at Daytona, NASCAR driver Natalie Decker. We're going to be joined by Chris from Drive Smart and Robert Hill. How are we feeling, Chris?
Oh, I feel great. I'm a little tired from Daytona. It was a long weekend, a lot of rain, but I couldn't be more excited to be here. And then Robert, how you doing, bro? I know we had a week off in between.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I missed you guys last week. It was a very quiet Thursday, just sitting in the chair, nobody to talk to, just me and myself. But glad that we're back here tonight, and we're gonna have one heck of a show here, boys.
So let's just go into it tonight. We're gonna do something special. So normally, what we do, right, Nick, is we give away Kyle Weatherman merch, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and bring that up on the screen real quick. We give away this fun race shirt, right, to anybody in chat. But tonight we're gonna do something special. You can either get one of these, or you can get any. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. And without further ado, let's bring in tonight's special guest. So if you want to go ahead, queue up now. Natalie, welcome to the Picker podcast. Thank you so much for being here. And we couldn't be more excited to have you here. So I know you've had a really busy and successful week. So what's it like now? Do you have some time to bring that adrenaline down? What's your whole week been like since you got home?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. And I could not sleep after that Daytona race. We hung out at the track for probably until 1 in the morning. So it was for a long time after. We didn't leave. We hung out with some of our sponsors and family and friends. And then it was around 2:30 in the morning and I was at Wawa eating pizza. And then I finally make it back to the hotel and I just could not fall asleep. I was so exhausted. I had a lot to do the next day. So we're filming like a docu-series type YouTube series thing for 2024. And that next day, I had to get up really early and film all the sit downs for the whole weekend. I was exhausted. It was worth it. I'm really excited about this whole docu-series thing we're doing on my channel. And yeah, we get home and I don't know what it is, but I just like my adrenaline's still going. I'm so upset that I can't be in Atlanta racing this coming weekend, but there will be races soon. Nothing that I can announce yet because nothing's fully set in place, but we're working really hard to be back at the track again.
That's really, really awesome. And then this docu series that you speak of, where can we find that when it's
Um,
done?
Yeah, that's on my YouTube channel. So Natalie Decker. And the first episode is already out. It's called Daytona. Like there's a lot on the line. And this next one comes out tonight. So the next episode is about practice and qualifying at Daytona. That was very intense for us because we brought a car with no owner points. And let me tell you, you guys were there. The weather, it was not good. It was not looking good. And but here's the thing, and I say it in the docu-series, so you'll see it in that YouTube video, but it gives me chills just talking about it. Derek, my husband, and I were walking into the track, and the videographer who's filming, producing, directing the whole thing, she's like behind us, capturing everything. And when you walk into the garage area where the Xfinity garage is, right next to us is the fan zone, and they're blasting music. It doesn't matter. It's like it could be 6 in the morning. They're partying already. And the song that is blasting was If It's Meant to Be, It'll Be. And it's like downpouring. And 2 hours until qualifying, I look at my husband, Derek, and I'm like, we're getting it in. It's happening. This is a sign. Qualifying is happening. And I know my car's fast enough to make it in on speed.
Yeah, that was incredible because I was there that weekend along with DLB, and it rained like every minute of the entire weekend, except for that time they needed to dry that track and be able to give you an opportunity to qualify. So sometimes, like you said, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and you drove your ass off to get in there. And obviously, you even drove better in the race, right? I guess they call you Daytona Decker for a reason. But that was like a blessing, right? Just to get an opportunity. Because if it rained, let's be realistic about it. If it rained out in qualifying, you weren't in the race, right?
I
Even though
was
you
going
deserved the
home.
opportunity. Yeah, you were going home, didn't even get a shot to qualify. So that was really, really amazing. So super proud and super excited to see you win. And I was pulling for the entire team because I wanted to see Mario have 3 cars in there. And when you got your shot, you drove your ass off. So super, super proud to see it. And super congratulations to be able to get that done. So that was amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun, and there was a lot of pressure on it. We had a new sponsor at the track with us that weekend, and I just really wanted to give them the best experience possible. And like once you go to one race, it could be a short track, asphalt race, dirt race, it could be supercross. It doesn't matter what it is. If it has a motor in it, and you go and you watch that race, like it's addicting. You want to go back again. And I really wanted them to have that feeling and that experience at Daytona. And I was so nervous leading into Daytona. I kept telling people that are close to me in my circle that I can just like vent to about random shit. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I have, in the last 3 years, I've put myself in sketchy situations where either weather can send us home or the car is getting prepared in under a week to go to a track. And that's not a lot of time to get a car prepared. Most of the teams that are bringing cars, they've been preparing them all off season. So I was really terrified going into this. And it took about 4 days for me to have faith in the weekend, and I'm glad I took the chance because if I didn't, I would have been so upset with myself seeing that that window happened for qualifying and they got it in because I knew that Mario could bring me a car that could qualify in.
And it's so funny you say that because honestly, from how I understand it, the deal to make this all work, it was like within a week of Daytona, right? Like it wasn't planned out 4 or 5 months ago, and then you guys announced it for some suspense. Like I think it was less than
Yeah.
10 days, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, oh, it makes me so angry. Fans of NASCAR, not my fans. My fans are awesome. The other fans, they're like, Natalie, you're always trying to wait last minute to announce. Like, it's not a surprise. Like, we need to know because we want to plan if we're going to the track or not. Like, they're like, stop hiding it from us. I'm like, I'm literally announcing the moment I'm signing the contract. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not holding out on you guys. Like, as soon as my contract's signed, I tell you.
Yeah, if I knew, listen, if you knew, let me know, but I only know when I know. So that was really awesome. That
Yeah.
was a great trip. And we'll kind of dive more into that whole experience at Daytona a little bit later. So where we'd like to really start is early life. So I know you're from Wisconsin, right? But give me a little bit of your childhood, give me a little bit of your background, like where you're from, and then we'll kind of get into what got you racing. So let us know your story.
Oh gosh, there is so much. Like, where do I begin? Um, I'm from a very small town in Wisconsin. It's called Eagle River. And I lived there my whole life until I moved to Charlotte to make my dreams come true in NASCAR. And this tiny little town was amazing. So my parents, they owned a snowmobile racetrack, and that's where I got my love for motorsports. Was growing up helping my parents work at the snowmobile racetrack. And um I I knew like at a young age that I wanted to do something crazy. Like I remember I grew up with an autoimmune disease, so I was always at the doctor's office and I was like, "Ah, I want to be a doctor or like a surgeon or cuz I grew up around that a lot. So I'm like that's what I want to do. And then when I got a little bit older, I remember being like, "Oh, maybe I want to play football." Like I just would like always come up with like crazy scenarios, something that I wanted to be that seemed unreachable. And then finally, there was a NASCAR race playing on our TV one Sunday night. And I asked my dad, it was back in the day when the running order ran on the top of the screen and it wasn't on the side. And 4 is my favorite number, but fourth place already passed by. And I'm sorry, Mark Martin, you were running 14th this race. Okay. I'm sorry. Everyone gets mad at me when I tell this story, but I'm like, okay, fourth already passed. Who's in 14th? Like, I'm going to root whoever's in 14th. And my dad goes, "Oh, that's Mark Martin. He's running 14th right now." And I'm like, "That's my driver. I want him to win." And my dad's like, "Do you want to hear a cool story?" I'm like, "Sure." I'm only like 6 years old. I'm like, "Yeah, tell me this cool story." And he bought one of Mark Martin's like late models asphalt cars years and years and years ago when he wanted to try to race, because he raced snowmobiles and then a lot of dirt racing. And he said he went down and he sat in the car and it fit perfect because they're like the same size and all this stuff. And I was like, my mind was blown. I was like, oh, my dad knows someone on TV. Like, this is crazy. Like, I want to do that. So that like little story and interaction with my dad Sunday really made me fall in love with the sport. And I'm like, I want to do like what Mark Martin was doing. I wanted to race cars and I wanted to be able to experience that. But I didn't know how to achieve it. And I like would talk to my parents about it, but I'm very young. They didn't really take me seriously.
So, at what
And
age did you actually get into racing then?
9. So I was 9 years old. So finally, I was like 7 years old, and my dad took me to a go kart race really close to our house, just a few hours away. I'm like, oh, that's how you get started. Like, I never knew that that was a thing. And I'm like, there's kids my age racing. So I begged my dad for a couple years. Every day he would drive me to school. I'm like, Dad, please get me a go kart. Like, I want to go racing. And then finally, it took a long time. It took a couple years, but then he got me a go kart, and then it was just game over from there. Then I was like addicted to it. Our whole family got addicted to it. My cousins were racing every weekend with me. My brother was racing, and we were just like this traveling family all summer long, going all over the United States racing go karts. And that's what made me fall in love with racing every weekend, is to be able to do it with my family. That was like the really special part.
So to Dustin now, I'm sure you got some questions.
Absolutely. So, Natalie, I'm wondering what is the biggest lesson or takeaway that you have learned from your racing career, no matter if you're young or if it's recent? What was the biggest thing that you have taken away that you have learned on track or throughout the NASCAR industry?
Oh gosh, there's a lot of lessons. Every day I feel like I'm learning a lesson, but the biggest one that I feel like I've learned since I've come into the sport of NASCAR, like all the way back when I first started racing in ARCA when I was 18, keep your circle small. There's only a small percentage of people that truly, really want the best for you. And that goes for any sport, any profession you're in. It's not just NASCAR. That's overall in the whole world in general. But this is just the world I'm in. So I didn't learn it until I got older. Obviously, any 18-year-old going out into any workforce is going to learn that years in. And that's what happened to me is I came in and I didn't know anything about anything. And I trusted people that I feel like maybe now going back, if I could go back, I wouldn't have trusted certain people. And that's a lesson that I'm glad I learned, and it made me really strong, but it took me years. I have been saying since the start of 2024 that like this is the year where I'm going to be transparent with my audience and my fans, because for the longest time I was beaten down by certain people in the sport to fit into this tiny little box and act a certain way and be a certain way, and like you're only going to get taken seriously if you're this or that. And that ruined my personality on interviews. And like, I mean, I was still myself and my happy, bubbly self, but like, I wasn't fully 100% transparent all the time because I was scared to be. And no matter if you're going and you're racing in NASCAR or you're going to play hockey or it's not any sports and you want to be an engineer or whatever that looks like in your career, just remember that keep your circle small, and that truly only like yourself really will be rooting for you every single day, and always trust your gut feeling and stand up for yourself when you believe in something and you believe that it should be a certain way, or you want to take a certain path because that's what you want to do. Stand up for yourself and believe it, and don't try to let other people, you know, put their thumb on you and keep you under their thumb. That was my biggest lesson. And I feel like I've been scared to talk about that since I started racing in ARCA, but that has happened to me year after year after year. And I was like, this year, it's done. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to speak up about it because I see a lot of drivers struggle with that when they come into the sport.
100%. And we kind of had a conversation before the podcast started, and you're in a really crazy sport where not the most talented person gets into a seat because they have money, right? So a lot of drivers have to kind of chase a sponsorship or chase money to get into a seat. So when you speak about being under somebody's thumb, like I can imagine, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth, and I'll let you elaborate, but I can imagine that they try to take you for who you are and change you to make you this person they can market versus like who you actually want to be. So like how tough is that if you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, absolutely. Like what you said is so correct. It is so tough. For example, because like I don't want to sit here and like talk like badmouth people or say names, because that's not at all what I want to do. But my best example would be when I first got into the sport. I'll just tell the story straight up. I posted a picture. I was in a race suit and I was road racing, so I wasn't even racing with the team that got very upset about me. I posted this picture and nothing about it was sexy. Like I was in my freaking fire suit eating a sandwich in the hauler. Like and I got pulled into a meeting with my team owner and he told me that I needed to delete that picture because it was too sexy. And I was thrown off. I'm young. I'm like 18, right? I'm like, okay, like I'm getting nervous. I'm like, okay, like this man is much older than me and he's telling me this, and it made me so uncomfortable to try to hold your shit together when you look up to this person, right? To try to hold your shit together. I was like so thrown off. And then finally I'm like, okay, explain to me what's wrong with this photo. And this man told me that it was my eyes and that if I'm in a race for him, I need to wear sunglasses at the racetrack or else no one's going to take me seriously. And
That's
that messed me up for years.
that's
Like
wild.
just me talking about it right now makes my blood boil because I would not wish that upon any 18 young little girl coming up trying to do what she loves, because that really messes with somebody's mind. And then I'm scared to talk about it like to anybody, right? Like I'm embarrassed. I don't know what just happened. Um so that story right there, and that's like one really small part of it. Things like that and bigger things have even happened. And that's why I just want so many people to like know to like stand up for yourself and what you believe in and just be yourself. Like if you want to be sexy, and my picture wasn't, but like if you want to be like, don't let anyone tell you you have to be a certain way. And that, yeah, so I'm just like really proud of myself coming into 2024 of just really trying to be Natalie. Like the Natalie I am behind closed doors. I want to be that girl all the time in front of new people, interviews, at the track, with my crew chief, with my spotter, when I'm in the race car driving. Like I want to be that girl all the time. And I can't be afraid to be her anymore. But for the last couple years I was terrified.
And more power to you, right? Because it's like when you're young and you're 18, you're 19, and you just want it so bad, right? Like you want to be a professional race car driver, so you'll do anything it takes.
Yeah.
And then you get these sponsors and you get these people that find sponsors and you get these race teams and they go and tell you what you need to be. And now it's like not only do I have to focus on performing on the track, but I also have to perform on how I look and what I do and what my actions are. And I'm sure that's really, really tough, right? So from our experience as a sponsor, like that's why we spent a lot of time with Kyle first before we made the deal to make sure he's the right person for the brand. And just speaking from a sponsorship standpoint, I think some sponsors have an unrealistic expectation, right? That they think they're going to put their name or their brand on a car and put a driver in a car and they're going to have this like immediate success. And they never really get to know the talent or the driver that's going to be behind it. And then you go and post one picture, right? And they're like, well, this is not what we're looking for. But you knew I was who I was, when he signed me and you put the money up. So it's got to be a really, really tough industry for anybody to be in. But when you're an 18-year-old girl, it's got to be like, I can never even put words to it or even understand, right? But at that point, it had to be so difficult.
Yeah, and I haven't really had any issues with sponsorships. This was have more so been people that have been in the sport for years, if that's team owners or people that work in NASCAR. Those are the people that I've were really looking up to. And when they would tell me those things and how to act a certain way and be a certain thing, those were the people that really beat me down over the last few years. And why I'm just so broken and upset about it is because that was my initial start in the sport, and that was my time to really show what I'm capable of. And there was so much behind the scenes, the shops and the track that no one saw. On TV, you only see what's happening on track. That's what's broadcasted. But I was fighting a whole nother fight behind the scenes with teams and other people in the sport. Sponsors were not like that was like the easy part of it for me. That was so like no one saw that. No one saw the fight I was fighting. Everyone just saw my performance on the track and it showed like and this is one thing I also want to say to the listeners. Um I'm not going to get into too much detail because it's private. But I was in high school and this little scenario happened to where there was a really close I was mean, okay? I've never been a mean person, but one day for whatever reason, I was a bully. And I shouldn't have been. And I said something really mean to another girl. And a family friend of ours who is like a sister to us said something to me along the lines of like, Natalie, like her family moves every 2 years because of her dad's job. And you can't, like, she like screamed at me and yelled at me, which I deserved it, right? Like I was being a bully. But this family friend of ours who knew everything about my family told me, Natalie, you have the best life at home and this and that. And like was trying to compare my home life to this other girl's home life. And that and no one knew what stuff was going on in my home life that I don't really want to talk about, but it was really horrible at that moment. It was so bad to where I was like so upset that this girl thought my life was so perfect at home when it wasn't. It was so broken at the time. And um I learned in that moment, I was like, you never truly know. Even it could be your cousin, it could be someone you are so close with. You don't know what's happening behind closed doors. You don't know what's happening in their head. You don't know what's happening to them when they're alone with their loved ones or in their family. You have no idea what's going on. And that to me is like a lesson that I learned at such a young age that I want people to like always remember, like treat everyone with kindness and like you have no idea the invisible fight someone could be fighting. And that when I learned that and then I came into the sport and I was fighting this invisible fight no one knew about, I I just like I couldn't be myself like I said because I didn't want anyone to know about that fight that I was constantly fighting every day behind closed doors with teams and stuff. So, but now I'm going to be myself and now it's going to be a whole new chapter for me in 2024.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, right? And that got really deep, but it is really important because there are people at home going through some of the things that you went through and it's just like tough to deal with, right? So like you made two really good points, right? One, you don't know the battle that other people are fighting on a day-to-day basis. So you got to take some time to take that into consideration. And the other thing is sometimes you never really want to meet your heroes, right? So you get into the racing space and like some of these people are on the surface like incredible, but then behind closed doors it's like, oh my god, like what am I dealing with? So I really appreciate you sharing all of that because a lot of people don't get to see that side, right? Everything is just a smile and everything's great, and you have to say your contractually obligated statement like three times, right? But it's like
Yeah.
people don't really understand like it's a cutthroat, really tough industry, and you get to that level, and sometimes you see some things that are really ugly, right? Even with pretty faces. So I really appreciate that. And now I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Robert because I know you got some questions. Go ahead, Rob.
Hey, hello. Yeah.
Hi.
So you talked about some of the tough stuff you've dealt with in your career, and no matter what you do on the racetrack, it always seems like social media lights up, and there's always negativity out there. How do you deal with that each and every day that it's out there?
Well, I don't want to lie because there's a lot of young girls that get horrible comments on social media and young boys, but for mostly for the girls cuz that's what I've experienced that I can speak on is some days it is horrible and tough and hard and can put me in a spiral and it's hard to come out of, but that's only like 5% of the time, which is a very small percentage. Um, Social media can be a very dark and scary place, especially if you let it be. But I've always said for a long time, since I started racing in the ARCA series, that you need to have a really good support group around you. If that's like a friend, your grandparent, a cousin, your parents, a sibling, whatever that is, even if it's just one person, because it's so important to when you do like spiral from something that's negative. Sometimes it's impossible to pick your own self up out of that. So to have someone there to help you is so important. To have someone to like vent to about it and talk about the negativity in a safe place with somebody is really important. And that I'm really thankful for that because I have a lot of people that really do care about me so much and love me so much and want what's best for me. So I can call my parents or my brother, my aunt, my husband, a lot of my family members. I can pick up the phone and vent to them about something horrible, negative on social media, and they'll talk through it with me, and then I feel better. I'm like, all right, good. There's one thing though that I need to work on, and I'm a very, very nice person. I would never be mean to somebody's face except for that one time in high school, like we talked about earlier. Except for that time, I learned my lesson. I'm never doing it again. Well, I am mean to my husband every so often, but he deserves it.
Sometimes he deserves it. Yeah, for sure.
But I I have to work on this one thing. I told myself it's a goal for 2024. When I see mean comments, sometimes like in my head or out loud, I will say the most horrible, mean thing about that person. And I will like attack them in a way that is so uncalled for, even though they'll never see it or hear it. But I do it still in my head or to someone that I love, like my husband. I'll say those things about this random person online. And that's something I want to work on because that's just negativity that I don't need in my life. Like, I don't need to be mean back. And I rarely have ever spoken about like religion or God or like Jesus ever publicly because, like, there's two things: religion and politics is stuff
Yep.
that I save for the dinner table. And I know a lot of families disagree with that, but that's how I grew up. If you want to talk about those things, you save it for the dinner table. But this year, I really try to lead myself with like, what would Jesus do? Like, that is my goal. Like, I need to be, even though it's behind closed doors sometimes, I really want to focus myself on positive energy and being nice. But I do want to blame my husband because he's a little negative person where like he'll say mean things about people he doesn't even know. And I'm like, it's your fault. You're teaching me naughty things.
Listen, I'm going to tell you one thing, all right, Natalie. If you have no haters, right? If you have no one that hates on you, you've done nothing in your life, right? And that's the brutal truth. I don't care if somebody likes it or not. If
That's
no one
true.
hates you,
You're right. You're
you've
right.
done nothing, right? And at the end of the day, like, I use any negative as a steam, right? Like something to
Yeah.
drive me, empower me to keep going forward. And I keep receipts on everything, right? So if somebody doubts me or somebody says I can't do this or I can't do that, it actually motivates me to go harder, right? And I
Yes,
kind of see that same thing in you, right? Because there's a lot, unfortunately, social media is a disgusting place
it
sometimes.
is.
It's a
Brutal.
beautiful place too, right? But it's a disgusting place sometimes.
Yeah.
And you got to kind of take that and compartmentalize it into a place where you just use it as energy, right? And that's what's going to push me
Yeah.
when I have doubters because I know what I'm capable of and you know what you're capable of, to kind of push you forward, right? So when you have these doubters, it gives you this little chip on your shoulder where like, listen, I'm going to prove them wrong. So when you have doubt, because everybody
Absolutely.
does, right? We're all people, right? We're going to have that doubt in our mind, like, can I actually do this? That's that thing that pushes me over the top to get me above and beyond whatever my expectations are, right? And my goals. So I think it's really incredible that you shared those things because social media can be great, especially in your position as a driver, but it also could be like a lot of negative, right? People say some really crazy stuff and it's like, whether you like it or not, you got to see it, right? And you look at it and it kind of like wants to kill you inside, right? Because you're only a person. We're all people, right? We breathe air, we bleed blood,
We
but
all put our pants on the same
we
way.
all put our, well, sometimes I don't. I look like crisscross
Sometimes
instead
backwards.
of just regular Chris, right? But I get exactly what you're saying. So I kind of want to take it back a little bit. So I know that at 9 years old you started racing. So when did you like start taking it serious? And like, how did you turn it into a career?
Honestly, right away, I took it so seriously. Before I even hit the track, my first time in that go kart, I knew my end goal was NASCAR. And I told my parents that, and they thought I was crazy. Um, there was a lot of learning that had to be done. I've never driven anything, and I was 9. But within 3 years of racing go karts, we won 4 track championships. And my dad told me, he was like, I know you're only 12, but you're ready to move up to a full size stock car. Like, you're ready to go. You have the license to do it, like whatever that is, short track wise. And he's like, but it's up to you. When it comes down to it, it's your decision. If you don't feel ready, we'll stay in go karts. And I'm like, well, I trusted him. I'm like, well, he's the professional here. Like, if he says I'm ready, I'm ready. So we moved up, and I started racing around the Midwest, short tracks all over, from 4 cylinders to like a Mod 4. And then I did limited late models and super late models. I was in a super late model at 14. And then once I was getting close to that 18 years old, we knew that it was time to go race at Daytona and Talladega and those big tracks that you have to be 18 to race at. So we knew our next step needed to be ARCA, but a lot of people on social media always say daddy's money, daddy's money. And like jokingly, I want to tweet back at them and be like, mommy's money, but like my parents don't have money regardless. But my I grew up racing off a sponsorship my whole entire life. Yes, I was very fortunate to have my parents fund my go-karting career and like launch my career at a local level, and that's still expensive. So like that still takes money. Where where I also felt very lucky and fortunate is my parents owned a snowmobile racetrack where they had connections in the motorsports industry already. So finding sponsorship was something that my dad was already doing every single day for his racetrack. And that's something that my parents then wanted to teach me on how to find sponsorship and how to keep funding my dreams and my goals. And that's one thing that I'll never be able to change anybody's mind that says daddy's money. I mean, they say it about drivers that come from nothing still. So like that's just something you won't be able to fix in those people's heads. Um, but when I went into the ARCA series, we had to find funding. Like it's people don't understand to race ARCA, it's the same amount of money to go race ARCA it is to race Xfinity in truck. Like it's the same amount of money. It's so expensive.
So
So,
I'm gonna say one thing to you that I said to Kyle, and then I'm gonna ask you the same question I asked Kyle, right? So the first thing I would say to you, right, is that you're probably the best traveling salesperson, right? You and your family, you and your dad, because like honestly, to get these sponsorships, like you're the best traveling salesperson there is on earth, right? And then what I'm going to ask you, so you started at 9 years old and you raced all the way up to 18 before you got into ARCA. And if you do any math based on any 9 to 18-year-old kid, there's elementary school, middle school, high school, and Kyle kind of explained to us like how much he missed throughout those
oh
years.
yeah.
And I imagine your story is very similar. So like what was it like being in school at that time?
Oh yes. I missed a lot. And I'm very thankful for the school I went to because they already had a program in place for a boy who went to the X Games out of our school, and he had to miss a lot for snowboarding. So went on that same program, so where I could, when I was gone, do the same lessons online, but when I came back, I could like go back into the classroom like I wasn't even gone. So that I was very thankful for. I didn't have to go full online and just not ever go back in the classroom. It was very important to me and my friends for me to be there because I also played sports. I love hockey. I don't watch hockey, so don't ask me what my favorite team is. I don't know. But I love playing hockey, and I played hockey all through high school. So that was also very important to me. I didn't want to miss hockey, and not to brag or anything, but I was a starter, first line. um so it was really important to me to live like that normal life still. But here's one story that kind of goes with like how much we miss for racing. We weren't even racing, but we were testing at a track because it was about to be race season. And that same day was prom, or like that same night. And my race or the track I'm testing at was about 3 hours. away from where my school is and where prom was. So after the race or the practice, my mom drove me all the way back home and I like got out of my race suit and got ready in the car on the way to prom. She got pulled over. It was her first time ever getting pulled over. She got a speeding ticket. Cause I was like, oh, mom, you could go 10 over. Like, no one's going to pull you over. Within like 10 minutes into our drive, she gets pulled over. But like things like that, like I would have to go from like a race or a test and like I'd go back to prom or I would go and I would be racing all at speed weeks, right before Daytona down in New Smyrna. And I would miss like 6 games of hockey. And my coach still would let me come back and be a starter when I came back to the team and was able to play again. So I feel very lucky in that way. But there was so much I missed.
Yeah, I mean,
So much.
that's got to be so crazy to go from a fire shoot to a prom dress all in one night, right? Within a few hours. I mean, I can
Yeah.
only imagine, but when you're trying to follow this dream and you're working so hard and chasing down to be one of the top 100 drivers in the entire world, like you have to make a lot of sacrifices, right? Because anything worth having is worth working hard towards. And that's something that you definitely went through and are still going through to this day. So I'm going to pass it to Robert now because I know Robert is our in-house like Wikipedia and racing history background expert. So let's transition to some of the early career, Robert.
Yeah. So obviously, you mentioned working your way up. You went through the mod stocks, the four cylinders, ARCA. What was the first time that you really felt like you kind of made it in your career? It was your first opportunity to really be on the scene. Like, I'm here and I'm ready to compete with these guys.
I was racing in Wisconsin at a local track. It's called State Park Speedway. It's in Wausau, Wisconsin. And Johnny Sauter came home to race at that track, and it was a double feature night. And the first feature I won, and I beat him, and I was like, I can do this. If I just beat Johnny Sauter, I can go and race in NASCAR. I can do it. And then the second race, he won the second race, the second feature of the night. But just to be able to like feel that feeling of like winning, but not just winning any race, a race that Johnny Sauter was in. And he finished second or third in I can't remember. It was such a long time ago. But that was a really amazing feeling. And yeah, after that, I was like, okay, if I can beat him at a local track, I know I race here every single weekend and he just came home, but like he should be lapping all of us.
For sure. Absolutely. And another thing that you mentioned is actually something Kyle had mentioned a few weeks ago, how you have to keep your circle close and watch who you have around you. Is there somebody that you've had in your career, maybe a driver, team owner, even a family member that you've really been able to lean on and has been a mentor in your career that's helped you get to this level and navigate through all the complicated stages that it takes to make it?
I would have to say that's Derek, my husband. I would not be able to do this without him. There's been so many times where I've just wanted to give up or quit. And I feel like not a lot of people understand how much effort he puts in for my career and for my dreams to be coming true when I go to the racetrack and get to race. And when we first moved out here, it was like really difficult. And he 100% backed me and believed in me. And that meant a lot for me because I needed someone that I was waking up with every single day that could see the hard work that I was putting in and could like validate when I was feeling shitty.
For
So let's
sure.
talk about it for a second. So you and Derek got married on New Year's Eve of this last year, I guess you would call it last year. So when did y'all meet?
So, we met at a local track in Minnesota. That was his home track. And this is the funny story. So, I was 14 and he was 18-ish. We're about 4 years apart. But he was in line in front of me, like when you sign in to get your pit pass, like at a local track. And he was wearing a baby blue Bauer hat, which Bauer is a hockey brand. They probably make other stuff too, but I know it as a hockey brand. I'm like, there's no way that there's a race car driver and a hockey player. But I was in Minnesota, so it made sense, right?
Of
Like,
course.
and I'm like, I'm in love. I didn't even see his face, but I knew I was in love. I told my dad that night, I'm like, I'm gonna marry that guy. Like I love him. I'm gonna marry him. My dad's like, you're crazy. Well, that night I met him and his dad, and that night I raced against his dad. his dad was in my class, not Derek. And his dad kicked my butt, but Derek's never beaten me. and and I remember telling my dad I was going to marry him, and everyone thought I was crazy. And then I met him that night, found out that he was 4 years older than me and had a girlfriend. And I'm like, well, this isn't going to work. Like, he could babysit me. Like, so he told me, he's like, you can call me when you're 18.
Did you?
Yeah, no, I didn't. So then we were both racing in speed weeks. I was 18 now, or just about to turn 18. And we were both racing down in speed weeks, but he was racing a legend car like an hour away. And I was racing at New Smyrna. And he was like, hey, how's it going? And then it was like Valentine's Day the next day. So I'm like, happy Valentine's Day. And then we never stopped talking since that day.
Love at first sight.
Yeah.
Like literally love at first sight, right? Like not even
It
like
was.
BSing, right? That's
Well,
exactly what it
I
was.
guess technically, Chris, she fell in love with his hat first.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
back of his head.
Yeah.
Loving the Bauer hat at first sight.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So as you keep going through your racing career, right? And I'm gonna pass it to DLB in a second. Like, what do you think your biggest challenge was to kind of keep breaking through as you go through these local circuits?
Funding was still a challenge when I was racing locally. Like, that was still very difficult. And like, we still raced on a very low budget compared to a lot of the guys that we were racing against. Um, but to be honest, racing in the Midwest, like, I felt so accepted and supported by so many people. Like, there was maybe like one person, but I can't even remember who that would have been. But I felt so supported. And everyone believed in me. And drivers would even ask me for, like, advice, or if I was like really fast one day at practice at a certain track, like, people would come up to me and ask me like what I'm doing differently than they're doing. I felt really supported until
So,
I came into the NASCAR world.
so I'm gonna pass it to DLB for a second. So I know you have some questions. Go ahead, Dustin.
So I'm curious, what are some of your goals for 2024? Because I'm seeing a different Natalie here today, a much more open, a much more confident, a much more, you're talking more about personal growth and being yourself this year. But what's some of your goals for this year, whether that's in racing, what would you like to accomplish, and what would you like to accomplish in your personal life?
Definitely to be at the track as much as possible. And that's been a goal of mine ever since I started racing, but I've always said since 2024 started is that I just want to be really transparent, and I want to be able to be more myself, like I said earlier in this. But to be honest, a goal that I've never talked about, and I could probably get a lot of backlash for this, but maybe I won't. Maybe I'll get support for it. A big goal of mine is to have a family one day and to still be going to the racetrack every single weekend like I did with my family. And that is a goal that Derek and I have talked about quietly for the last couple years, even before he even proposed to me. I was the issue on why the proposal never happened, even though I like publicly blamed Derek. um, but like, that is like a really big goal of mine, is to have a family and take that family racing every single weekend.
And that's something you see. Like, it's a shame, but I understand kind of from like 1,000 feet in the air that female athletes kind of have that same struggle where it's like you're in the prime of your career, but at the same time you want to have a family. So it's like something really difficult to deal with at the same time, where you want to have children and raise a
Mhm.
family with Derek, but at the same time you're so focused on your athletic career, and it's got to be really tough to try to find that balance. Is that like fair to say?
I don't know if it's tough for us to find that balance, because we have so many people in our corners that want that for us and that will support us to do that. I think where we struggle with it is other people in the industry understanding where we come from. Um, for someone like randomly to maybe think that, like, after we start a family, that I wouldn't want to come back and race. And, you know, I can't put myself in that position because I don't know how I would feel after I started a family. But I know right now how I feel, and that is that I want to be a race car driver until I absolutely can't do it anymore physically. Like, every other single race car driver out there that's a man. That's how they feel. And a woman can feel that same way. And there's like so much online right now that I see of like, a lot of women being like, you can do it all, like very supportive of the women that want to be like CEOs and mothers and do it all and be an athlete. I've seen basketball players do it in the off season, have a family, start a family, can kick ass in basketball. I see it all the time with these women that are like killing it in their career and in their job. And I know I have the mental strength to do that. And I have the support system around to do that. Also, just want the listeners to hear me say, like, because I feel like also it's not talked about enough for the women that don't want the career. Like, that is fine too. Like, I'm the girl that wants the career and the family, and I will speak for all the women that want that. But you still need to speak for the women that just want to be the mom. Like, that is totally okay. So when I'm sitting here and being like, I can do it, I want it all you women, you can do it too. But if you don't want that, just be the mom. Do that because that is still like a mom is the most important job in the world. We're all sitting here
Amen.
today doing what we love because of our mothers.
Absolutely.
So
Amen.
I just want everyone to know that. Like, yes, I'm over here preaching. You can do it all, but you can also just be that mom if you want.
You can be whatever you want, but you can be a great mother and you can be a great athlete. You can be, God gives you a lot of opportunities, right? So you can kind of balance a lot of things, and that's something that you do really well, right? Is you balance a lot of opportunities, and I really think it's incredible that you kind of speak to that, because a lot of times I feel like even men and women, like, you have to choose one or the other, right? But you really don't. You just got to be really good at balancing the two. So to get down to it, like, you're one of the best female drivers in the entire world, right? You are the first woman to run laps in the lead lap, right? In, I think, a decade, right, Robert? I think it's been a decade since Danica Patrick. So,
Yeah.
like, what is that feeling,
2013.
Natalie? Right? It's like you're the
So
first woman
I
in over
saw
a
it
decade.
coming. Okay, so here's the thing. I saw it coming, but we have to backtrack all the way to practice. Okay, because this is where the story starts.
Let's go.
I tell Mario, my crew chief, everyone, I said, we're making a damn press lap in practice because it's going to rain in qualifying and we need something good for those sponsors. And they were like, okay, if the opportunity comes, we'll make that press lap. And I said, absolutely. It's all situational. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. We have to prepare for qualifying because that could still happen. But if everything goes well and we have time, and for everyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about with a press lap, we wanted to, if there was a draft happening, I didn't want to be a part of the draft. I wanted to catch the draft because if I catch the draft in the right amount of time and we time it perfectly, I'd be the fastest car probably in practice if you do it right. And I knew we were capable of doing that. We had a great spotter that weekend, a great crew chief, and I was going to listen to everything they said if we could make this press lap happen. We ran out of time and there was like a caution, like nothing went our way in practice. We didn't get the press lap. So I was a little upset about it. But not really because I was like, well, we did our best. And qualifying comes around. We're in the show now. Everything's great. And it was never talked about green flag stops, if we were going to stay out as long as we can. They just told me that they were going to have a plan for when I pit that was going to work and make me comfortable to where we don't lose a draft. They were going to do everything they can to make sure my green flag stop was comfortable because I have not a lot of experience doing those and I just wanted to minimize our mistakes. And so that was staying out as long as possible because if you stay out as long as possible, there's a chance that you won't even have to make a green flag stop. I'm seeing packs pull off. The first one goes, was not warned about it, so I was a little thrown off. The second one goes, I was starting to get warned when these packs were pulling off. And then finally, I see there's a pack of like about 4 or 5 cars, and those are the leaders. And we're the second pack behind them, just hanging out, and we're kind of catching them. And I'm like, oh, damn, we're going to catch them. Maybe we're coming with them. So now I'm prepared. I'm like, okay, if we catch them in these next few laps, we're going with that pack for sure. And nothing was ever said. Nothing was ever said on the radio. I was staying calm. I trust them. I trusted them so much on when we were going to do our green flag stop. All of a sudden, that pack that we were catching pulls into pit road, and we obviously couldn't follow them because we were still a little further behind than what would have worked if we came down pit road with them. And I'm like, damn, I'm leading. They didn't say anything yet, but they pulled off. I crossed the start finish line. I probably wasn't technically the leader yet, but in my head, I'm like, I'm leading the damn race. And a full lap goes by, and my spotter finally says something, and he says it in a really nice way of like pumped up, like, Natalie, like you're leading the freaking pack. Like you're in the lead. Let's go. Like this is awesome. And for all of the keyboard haters, warriors, whatever they're called, whatever people call them, for all the meanies out on the internet, when they're like, oh, it was strategy, it was strategy. Racing is strategy. Racing is chess. If you ask any driver what to compare racing to, we compare it to chess because everything is a strategy. No matter if you drive to the front from last or you're in the lead because of a strategy, both are still strategies. And so for anyone that wants to come after me for it, it was not planned. So once I was in the lead, I was happy because I was like, Mario's giving me that press lap, but in the race. Rather they meant to or not, I'll never know because I didn't want to ask because I don't feel as if it was super planned. I think it just all aligned perfectly for me to lead the race and their strategy worked. And
Well, I'll never speak for Mario, but I've known him for over a year now, and I know one thing about it is he doesn't do press, right? He's not a
no,
guy that
yeah,
does
he was
press.
like,
Yeah,
press lap,
he's not the
what?
guy that does media. He's the guy that works really, really hard and tries to perform. So you put yourself in a position to be in first place, right? And at the end of the day, like if things change, you can win that race because you put yourself in that position because of your talent and the car performed really, really well. And like we said earlier, like there's going to be haters for everything. It's just what life is. But at the end of
Yeah.
the day, Natalie, you led 7 laps in Daytona in one of the toughest tracks, in one of the toughest environments, and no one, right? I don't care what you say, and you can hate this podcast, you can hate whatever you want on your socials. No one can take that away from you. And I imagine that even if I was blind, right, and I can only hear, I know that you are a super qualified driver with a really bright future. That is not your last stop, right? Like you have a lot in front of you, and I think you're going to turn a lot of heads and impress a lot of people. And not to get deep, but like at this point, you have to be super proud of yourself, right? Or am I crazy?
I am. It goes past just my skill because I've known that my skill is always there. I've just felt that I've never put myself in the right position to show my skill. And I feel really good about racing with DGM. I feel it's a really good home for me. And I've been saying that as soon as I felt it, I've been speaking about it. But I want to go back really quick to when you asked me, I forget who asked me, but about my goals in 2024. I just one clicked. We were on our way home from Daytona, which a lot of people don't know, but I put in a lot of extra work for racing. Like we trailered down a whole ass show car and then trailered it back when all these other drivers are flying on private jets. Like, okay, like we put in a lot of freaking work. So like my weeks are always longer. But I was in the passenger seat because my husband doesn't let me drive because he gets car sick. And I told him, I said, you know, I went in to Daytona with like the mentality of like I could win. Like my Mario brought me a car that could win. And in my head, I was like, there is a possibility, and I know my car is capable of it. And I know I have the skill to win at Daytona. I feel confident at Daytona. And I told him, I said, maybe I've never had that mindset before. I've ever since I started racing in ARCA have came to every race with the mindset of, all right, I'm not the best driver here. I don't have the best race car, so I'm just going to learn. So every race since I was 18 years old, starting in ARCA, that's how I showed up to the racetrack every day. And I was like, I need to change that because I told him, I'm like, I need to change that and I need to have a winning mindset every single weekend. And if that win doesn't mean we're in victory lane, some weekends it won't mean that. Like Daytona, the winning didn't mean us in victory lane. The winning meant that we qualified a car with no owner points into the show. We brought the car home in one piece and we showed the skill we had during the race, which was leading laps and running a really good, clean, and smart race. To me, those are really small wins that will eventually lead to bigger ones. So I'm like, I need to change my mindset. That's a goal of mine for 2024.
Yeah, it's like setting short, medium, and long term goals, right? And defining that goal. And that's incredible. Your mindset, Natalie, is like it's incredible, to be honest with you. I'm going to pass it to DLB for one more question. Then we'll go to Robert, and then we're going to start wrapping it up. So, DLB.
So you said that you found a bit of a home here with Mario. What stands out to you with DGM and his whole race shop and everything he has going over there versus maybe some other random teams that you may have drove for in the past? Because Mario does seem like a very hardworking guy, and it seems like that pairing just seems to fit there. Why is it that you feel like that is a home for you? Because I view it as that as well. It seems like there's just a pairing, and I don't know what it is, but I like it.
Yeah, well, the first thing I want to say is like his wife and daughters are amazing. And to be able to work with women like that, that makes me very comfortable and I can be myself more freely without being scared that someone's going to feel like intimidated or want to put me back in that little box. So that was one of the big reasons why I initially first fell in love with being over there. Secondly, the car had to be put together in under 2 weeks. And when the car finally made it up here to their pilot shop in Charlotte, because they're out of Florida and they have a shop here though. And my car came up here. They didn't cut any corners. They looked at the radar. They probably were thinking that it was going to rain and that this race wasn't going to happen for this 36 car. But they put in the effort and the work, and so did Kyle. Like everyone was there working so hard just to fit me in the car and make me comfortable. Like the smallest little details. And not a lot of teams have done that for me, where they go the extra mile to make sure I'm comfortable in the car. I'm very small. I'm 5 feet, under 100 pounds. It's very difficult to fit me in race cars. And they didn't cut any corners. So right there, that gave me confidence. I'm like, they believe in me to put that work in. Like they care about me. So I'm going to care about them. And then the other thing is it goes way back to Charlotte when I was racing the Cracker Jack, Cracker Jill car. That car, I showed up with no owner points and I was racing with SS Greenlight. I really like that team. I've had a lot of good experiences with them, but when I was there and I qualified it in because it had no owner, well, it had owner points, but it wouldn't have made the show if we didn't qualify 33rd or better. We qualified 33rd, and Mario came over and congratulated me and gave me a hug. And I said, Mario believes in me. Like, he didn't have to do that. He went out of his way, came to my hauler, and told me I did hell of a lap at Charlotte. And I was like, I want to race for him.
Love Mario. Love him so much. Robert, what do you got?
Yeah, you mentioned your spotter, Jeff, who was up on the spotter stand for you. I've actually spotted races against him in the NASCAR Pinty series before, and one of the owners told me to essentially go and throw him off the roof because the car he was spotting put us in the wall and ended our day. But such a nice guy. You nailed that on the head. But my question is, how cool would it be to race in the Xfinity series or Truck series against Derek, and would you beat him?
I would kick Derek's ass. And the only reason I wouldn't is because he would wreck me if I was passing him for sure. He would wreck me. He already told me. I said, Derek, we would have a reality TV show because I would literally punch you on pit road. We would be fighting if you wrecked me. But we want to make that a goal of ours to race against each other. If that's in the truck series, Xfinity series, whatever it is, it's a goal of ours. I've always beaten him. I've raced against him only in a handful of times. And I told him everything will be a wash. And this is like a one and done race. Like we'll race against each other. Whoever wins has the bragging rights until the next one.
We got to take you guys out to a go-kart track at a minimum. So it
We
sounds
go
like
go.
there's two opportunities we have to find here. One is drafting or driving with the Deckers as a reality TV show, right? And the second thing is following the rest of your career because I know it's going to be super super bright, and I can't wait to follow it. And hopefully you come back to one of these podcasts and really get to see where you're at in like a few weeks, potentially a few years. Who knows where we're at? But Natalie, we thank you so much for being here. And I thank you so much for sharing everything that you shared. And I'm sure it means a lot to a lot of the men and women out there. So that means so much. But at this point, Natalie, this is the part where we're going to go ahead and give away some merch. So I need you to do one thing. Can you tell the people that are in chat watching us live before this goes to YouTube as a video to go ahead and get active in chat so we can go and do a giveaway?
Yes, get active in chat. Let's do a giveaway. I have some awesome merch on my website, some Daytona stuff, which was so scary to put on my website because I didn't know if I was going to race or not.
So you have a fifth place uh, finish in Daytona before this, right? So is that how you got the
I
name
do.
Daytona Decker?
No, I don't think so. Because the fifth place finish was so hush hush. Like NASCAR never wanted to talk about it ever, to the point to where like I'm like, did they like me? um,
Like me, yeah.
so I don't know. That just happened over the weekend. Like this last couple days is the first time I'm hearing it. So I
Well,
think it happened from when I was leading the laps.
so the only thing I'm going to say is I went through your entire shop before the show. I'm going to tell you the Daytona Decker shirt is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Okay, that thing is
Really?
fly. Yeah, that thing is amazing. With the little sun going through the circle is the most
Oh,
amazing piece of merch I ever seen. Besides your 2013 Xfinity shirt, that thing goes so hard.
thank you. I'm glad you love it. We have a new designer that worked on that stuff leading into Daytona, and then his wife is the one that's doing the docu series for us on my YouTube channel. They're like a little dream team.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So we're gonna go ahead and give the giveaway in a minute. But Natalie, we're gonna say goodbye to you. Appreciate you so much for being here, and we can't wait to see you soon. And congratulations, love the heart. You have a great night, Natalie, and we can't wait to see you on the track again. And congratulations for your accomplishments at Daytona.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Good night, Natalie. Guys, that was a great episode. Episode 3. I mean, I honestly, what else would you want? So far, we have had Kyle Weatherman, Mario Gosling. We just had Natalie Decker. We're putting out some people here, right? And I appreciate everybody being here live. But most importantly, if you're seeing this now, like go ahead and watch this on the YouTube channel, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger because we're trying to bring you the best content we possibly can, the best experiences we possibly can. I love DLB so much. I love Robert so much, and I appreciate you guys so much for being here. And I hope you guys are having a good time.
Absolutely.
I'm
What a
having a blast.
that was
So,
awesome though. That was a great talk with Natalie, and I love that she opened up to us like that.
that's a different Natalie than we've ever gotten in the past. That is not the Natalie of last year. That's not the Natalie from 4 or 5, 6 years ago. This is a different Natalie Decker. That whole interview was she was her raw self, which is something we don't see with any NASCAR drivers. Let's be completely honest.
Yeah.
That is rare to get an interview like that. Very rare. So I love that side of her. She made a new fan today. I love that side of her. I mean, overall, I think she has a lot of things going good for her. It not only she seems more open, she seems very goal driven. She seems like she's very focused on self improvement and just a bunch of positivity in her life, which is something I think we all relate with because I mean we're all on our own journeys in life, and I think it's cool that she's open about that and that we can have that conversation and have it publicly for so many people to see. But I believe we're giving away a little bit of merch, right? So
Yeah,
in
so
order
I
to
have
do that,
so whether you guys like it or not, I have the executive decision on all the merch. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give the big dog Sean Lake because he's here every week. I love that dude so much.
The big dog.
The big dog
big
Xavier
dog.
Sanchez and Austin Wells. So the three guys, big dog Sean
Woo!
Lake, Xavier Sanchez, and Austin Wells. I'm gonna give you a piece of merch, whatever you want. So you can either get a Kyle Weatherman fan shirt, that one on the screen, or any T-shirt on Natalie's the best. We love you so much. We love anybody who watches it and anybody who didn't see it live. You know what's going to happen, right? We're going to put it on YouTube, make a video. Mario got 12,000 people in a week, right? So
I love
it just keeps
Mario.
growing and growing. We're so happy about this podcast. You guys are incredible, right? I love you, Robert. I love you, DLB. This podcast keeps growing, right? And it started from literally what you guys announcing our iRacing stream, me being there with you cooking
Yep.
steaks, to this, and it only gets bigger. And our goal is to bring drivers and bring pit crew guys and bring team owners to you live and kind of get down to the real story and bring it back to you. So like I couldn't ask for more. So incredible. Listen, we're only week 1 in, right? Out of a 33-week season. Guys, we have a long season ahead of us and I couldn't be more happy.
on to Atlanta tomorrow, and so many things to look forward to. I mean, it's a heck of a season. We got Drive Smart back on the car of Kyle Weatherman this week at Atlanta, so that's going to be super cool. Focus on and see on track for all the viewers to pay attention on for when you tune into the NASCAR Xfinity Series this weekend. I mean, overall, in Atlanta, I think Kyle has a bit of a, chip on his shoulder coming into this one. I mean, it wasn't the result we wanted for it, but I think everyone's super motivated. Mario has built a strong team of a bunch of people who's not going to give up and not going to get down about anything. And I think the positivity in that garage area is going to be strong. And there's just so much to look forward to this entire season.
To answer Austin's question, you're going to go to our X account or Twitter, as most of you know it, right? But our X account at GoDrySmart, and all you have to do is DM us, and we'll do the rest with you in DMs. Same thing for you, Sean Lake. Same thing for you, Xavier Sanchez. Go ahead and hit us up on our X account, guys. This has been great. So we're going to wrap it up. Next week, we'll be here, right? Dustin, you're going to Atlanta tomorrow, I think, right?
Yes,
You're going to
sir.
Atlanta.
Oh, yes, sir.
Robert,
5 a.m.
we'll still be here because somebody's got to work, right? Somebody's got
That's
to pay the
right.
bills.
That's right. We
And,
got to do some work.
Robert's going to be live with us in Pocono, so we can't wait from that. Wait for that to happen. And then, most importantly, if you're here or you're watching this in the YouTube video, we're here every Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So go ahead and tune in, guys. With that said, we're going to go ahead and tune off. Go ahead and